I am a really big fan of a trend that's been going on in games recently, where you have some big gaming company and they have some legacy series that everybody loves, but for whatever reason, they don't make games in that series anymore, despite everyone begging for it to return. And eventually, someone gets fed up enough that they go, fine, then I'll do it myself. Another example that comes to mind would be something like Bug Fables, where people love those first two Paper Mario games, but Nintendo refuses to make Paper Mario games in that style anymore. So the developers of Bug Fables took it upon themselves to deliver people that classic Paper Mario formula, and Bomb Rush Cyberfunk does the exact same thing for the Jet Set Radio series. But especially one thing I like about this trend is these developers are not just trying to recreate these older games, but in a lot of cases, the games that they create surpass the originals, and that is most definitely also the case for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. And that is not at all surprising to me considering the developers behind this game. I've been excited for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk since literally the day it was announced, not just because it looked like an awesome new Jet Set Radio type game, but also the people making it, Team Reptile, are responsible for Lethal League, which is an insanely awesome, very unique fighting game that has a similar Jet Set Radio-inspired visual style. And it's super duper cool. If you've not played Lethal League or its sequel, Lethal League Blaze, I definitely recommend checking them out. And after that game and how awesome it was and how it really managed to capture the spirit of Jet Set Radio despite being a completely different genre and type of game, when they announced that they were going to be making essentially a new Jet Set Radio game, I was like, there is nobody on planet Earth I trust more to get this right. And they totally fucking got it right. They nailed it. This game is so awesome. This is no doubt the best game I've played since Hi-Fi Rush, which says a lot about my tastes, I know. Before we get into things proper, for anyone concerned about spoilers, I'm not going to be talking any story spoilers here, and I'm only going to be showing like cutscenes and stuff from early on in the game. But I am going to be showing all of the areas and most of the playable characters, so if you're particularly sensitive to spoilers, you have been warned. Now let's get into things. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is a game where you're primarily going to be skating around and spraying graffiti all over the place. Now don't that sound familiar? Yeah, this game is extremely blatant with its influences. It basically is Jet Set Radio 3. I mean, it's doing its own thing a little bit, but, I mean, come the fuck on. Look at the game. If you didn't know what this was and you were just watching the gameplay, 100 out of 100 people would guess that this was a Jet Set Radio game. Literally, the only thing stopping this from being Jet Set Radio is the IP, but in every single other respect, this is most definitely Jet Set Radio. And so I am going to be talking about this game in the context of comparing it to the first two Jet Set Radio games, because it's begging for it, quite frankly. You know, to a degree, I think you have to look at things on their own, but this game, they know what they're fucking doing. Fortunately, though, this game compares very well to the Jet Set Radio games because it's better than them in pretty much every single regard. I mean, to start off visually, this game is absolutely gorgeous. I love the choice of the low-poly, Dreamcast-like character models and stuff. I think it looks fucking amazing. And the visual style, obviously, is extremely similar to Jet Set Radio, but it is a little bit different as well, particularly with the character designs. They have their own kind of flavor to them, and I think they look so fucking awesome. Especially, like, the main character, Red, he looks super fucking cool, or the main antagonist character, DJ Cyber. I mean, obviously, look at that character. You can understand why I think he looks really cool. And pretty much all the character designs look really great as well, and the environments, too, look really, really nice. And it's not just the visuals in terms of, like, you know, the art style or the graphic quality or whatever, it's also the presentation of how everything is done in the game. Because, you know, you have all the dancing and stuff, and that's great, looks really good, but particularly the way that everything is handled, the way that everything is presented. The fact that the character select screen is you go up to these squares, and, like, the first time I saw one of these, I just started dancing on it before that mechanic was ever introduced to me, just because it felt like the right thing to do, because I was totally in that right headspace that the game wanted me to be in. And then I discover, oh, this is how you swap characters. You go to it, and then you start dancing, and then all the other characters gather around you, and it's like a bunch of people on the streets dancing, and then, you know, you switch your character, and then you watch a cool little dance animation of them. Like, that kind of stuff is just so fucking great. The way that when you're doing graffiti and you do all the different motions, your character has these really cool, snappy animations that it almost feels like you're cutting something up with a sword or whatever, and then you get that really cool animation of them doing the spray, and then it appears, and it just... The presentation here and everything is immaculate. It is unbelievably awesome. And the soundtrack, as you would expect, as would be necessary for a game like this, is also excellent, but I would go beyond that. Like, this is straight up, like, the best soundtrack I've heard in a game in I don't even know how long. The music here is ridiculously good. You know, the Jet Set radio games are famous for their music for good reason, but I actually think that this game has a better soundtrack overall. You know, there's the stuff by Hideki Naganuma in here that's cool, but even beyond him, there's tons of great music here that I've actually gone on to listen to more of the artist's stuff after playing the game. And a big element that this game has that the Jet Set Radio games did not is a story. The Jet Set Radio games barely had anything of a story. It was mainly just like a premise to explain what's going on in the game, but there was nothing there to actually, like, get invested in or whatever. And here, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk has a fairly decent story. It's not the most amazing, revolutionary thing you've ever seen in the world, but it is pretty engaging, and it has a number of twists and turns that keep you wondering what's going to happen next. And by the time it was over and it was all said and done, it was quite a cool story. Now, I will say the characters are all completely one-dimensional, but I'm really not bothered by that in this case. I'm not really here for some deep, introspective story with amazing characters or anything like that. The characters serve their function well as things that push the story forward and keep you wondering where things are going to go next. And everyone has such a cool design, and you're just so enthralled by the general style and presentation of everything that you really don't even care. And really, that is the strongest part of the story, is the presentation of how the story is shown. All of the cool style and everything that this game has going on, it seeps through into the story in the best possible way, because these cutscenes are so well directed, the camera work, the pacing, the flow of everything. It has just this amazing energy to it that makes it feel so fucking awesome, especially in combination with how well it uses the fantastic music. When you all put it together and you watch these cutscenes, you're like, damn, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Another thing about the story that I really like in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is it does such a great job of building this world, something that the Jet Set Radio games kind of did, but not a ton, was the idea of what's going on here. We have all these kids skating around, painting graffiti all over the place, and in a way, Jet Set Radio, and by extension Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, like, if you just asked me, what are those games really about beyond, like, the literal concepts, then I would say it's about, like, gang warfare, kind of. Because, you know, you have all the different groups, and they have their different turfs, and they're warring over who gets to control what turf and everything, and they have to fight with the cops and stuff like that. So in a way, it's kind of an abstraction of gang life, but instead of committing crimes, people skate, and they dance, and they enjoy music and whatever. And of course, all those things have a place in street culture as well, you know, skating culture, graffiti, music, dancing. So these games take the positive aspects of street life and really focuses in on those things and exaggerates them out to the point where they become super duper cool. But then BRC specifically, thanks to its story, can also deal with other things, like the companionship that comes from a gang. You know, it talks about how we're a crew and we're in this together and those kinds of things, which is really nice. The whole game, everything about it feels so genuine, which just makes everything all that much better. And the way everything is stylized here, it's so much more than just people trying to copy Jet Set Radio. Like, everything in this game feels so authentic and true to the kind of vision and identity that Jet Set Radio was going for. It's not just the end product, it is the heart that led to that end product is also present here as well. And that comes through in so many different ways in a lot of the small details in the stuff that really I could just go on and on about forever, but suffice it to say that, like, stylistically, every single thing about this game is phenomenal, and it's the best shit ever, and I love everything about it. Now let's start talking about the gameplay of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, because the Jet Set Radio games, while stylistically very cool, in my opinion, are a bit lacking on the gameplay side of things. They're fun games, but they have a lot of issues that really hold them back, and generally I feel a bit of weakness in how they're designed and how they work. But Bomb Rush Cyberfunk improves upon the formula of the Jet Set Radio games immeasurably. This game is so much better than those as far as moment-to-moment gameplay, controls, game design. This game is really, really fun. So, first of all, controls. The controls here are so insanely smooth. I can't even really put it into words properly, but when you get your hands on this game, oh my god, it feels so good to play. You know, this game has a lot of the same floatiness that you found in the Jet Set Radio games, but what this game has that they don't is incredibly responsive and precise, tight controls that enable you to do whatever the hell you want at any time. I'd actually go as so far as to say that this is probably one of the best controlling 3D platformers I've ever played, because there's a number of instances in this game where you're doing a lot of precarious platforming, where if you mess up, you're going to fall down a really long way, and yet I never felt any fear about trying to do stuff, or even getting a bit riskier and doing like crazy big jumps to go from rail to rail or whatever. I always felt completely confident in my ability to do exactly what I wanted to do and make all these crazy jumps without issue. And probably like 95% of the time, I was able to do what I was aiming for. I really didn't miss jumps very much at all in this game, and I put a lot of that on how incredibly good the controls are. As far as mechanics are concerned, of course, we have a lot of the same things that we have in the Jet Set Radio games, so you can automatically grind on rails just by jumping on them, and you can do tricks, which I'll get into a little bit more in a little bit. But there's a lot of other mechanics in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk that expand upon the very simple gameplay of Jet Set Radio to make it much more nuanced and much more enjoyable. First of all, we have the boost, which is very different than the boost from Jet Set Radio Future for many reasons, first of which being that in that game it was based on spray paint cans, but there is actually no spray cans in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. You don't have to worry about that. When you're going around spraying, you can do it as much as you want. Instead, with this game, you have a dedicated boost meter that you can fill up, and you can spend the boost as much as you want. You can boost for just like a fraction of a second and just take a little bit out of the meter. And what's nice about the boost is that you can boost when you're doing pretty much anything, when you're on the ground, when you're jumping through the air, when you're grinding on rails. And naturally, the boost speeds you up, but what it does of greater importance is it allows you to make much longer jumps than you normally would be able to otherwise. So naturally, very useful, and you're going to want to be boosting quite a bit, which means you're going to need to build up that boost meter, which you do by doing tricks. And tricks were a thing in the Jet Set Radio games, but they were very limited and didn't really serve that much purpose. But here in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, tricks are a much bigger part of the game. In fact, a lot of the trick mechanics here are kind of inspired by the Tony Hawk games more than Jet Set Radio. The way it works is you have 3 trick buttons, and naturally, as you would expect, you can do a bunch of tricks together in a combo, and doing these combos is what fills up your boost meter. And of course, you can keep your combo going by grinding from rail to rail, or doing wall runs, or things like that. Basically, just don't hit the ground to keep your combo going, unless you do a manual, just like in the Tony Hawk games. This is something very different compared to Jet Set Radio that really overhauls how the trick system in this game works, because here, you can keep your combos going through any situation. And with each of your trick buttons, you have 3 sets of tricks you can do depending on the situation. You have tricks for when you're in the air, tricks for when you're grinding on rails, and tricks for when you're manualing. So you want to vary things up as much as possible. You also have special tricks you can do by boosting when you press a trick button that can give you a little bit of a burst of speed or even reset your manual if it's about to run out. Because unlike the Tony Hawk games, we don't have a balance meter or anything like that. You don't have to worry about bailing or stuff like that. If your combo drops, then it just drops. You get the points and you can just keep on going, which makes a lot of sense to me because this still, at the end of the day, is not a Tony Hawk game. Like, having to maintain your balance and do all this stuff while platforming around and exploring and looking for all the spray tags, like, that would be way too much and not really in the spirit of what this game is trying to do. So I feel like they hit a good amount of balance with what they're trying to take from Tony Hawk and implement it here to try to flesh out the trick system and the gameplay, and I think it's really, really fun. What it takes from Tony Hawk and adds to the Jet Set Radio formula that was not there previously is this idea of lines and keeping your combo going. Because in the Jet Set Radio games, you would pretty much just skate around and look for spray tags, and there wasn't really that much to the traversal itself aside from grinding on rails. But here, when you're exploring around, you're not just kind of coasting along the ground looking for spray locations. You're hitting rails, you're doing wall runs, you're hitting vert ramps, you're trying to keep your combo going, you're looking for those opportunities to extend your line, and that just gives you a wonderful little thing to do as you explore around to keep you occupied and keep you having a lot of fun, and then you're rewarded for that by having a ton of boost meter that you can use to get around faster, to take bigger shortcuts and stuff. It is really great. One thing that you could argue is a flaw with this system is that once you get a hang of it, it is very, very easy to just keep your combo going basically in perpetuity. Whereas in Tony Hawk, the longer you go, the harder and harder it becomes to keep your combo going. That's not really a thing here. But for multiple reasons that I'll get into a bit later, I don't really think that's a problem. I think that actually works very nicely to the game's strengths, so I'm fine with it. Oh yeah, another thing that I almost forgot to talk about is how this game is not just skates like the Jet Set Radio games were, you also have skateboards and BMX bikes. And the reason I almost forgot to talk about this is because, unfortunately, there's really nothing to this. The different vehicles, or whatever you would call them, they all play exactly identical to each other. Controls and physics and gameplay, they're all the same. The only difference is the animations, and each of them has a unique ability that they can use to access different areas, but all of these abilities are just like arbitrary, basically interact with a thing. There's nothing to really doing any of this stuff. Like with skateboards, you can get on these fire hydrants and spin them around to go up higher to get to areas you couldn't get to otherwise, or with skates, you can break certain floors by manualing over them. Whereas with BMX bikes, and this one they got really fucking lazy with, there's just doors that you open by just being on a bike in front of the door. Now that is fucking lame. And none of these really do anything or add anything to the gameplay, so it really feels very arbitrary as just a way to get you to use the different types of wheels. But it really doesn't matter very much at all. And in fact, for some of these, you can circumvent the kind of wheels you're supposed to use if you know how to approach it from the right angle and know how to use the boost jumps correctly, which is very fun and very cool, but it kind of just goes to show the weakness of this design. Not a huge issue. I still do like to vary up what I use just for the coolness factor of it, but it would have been nice if these actually played differently from each other, because in addition to all the different wheels, you can also get off whatever you're using and run around on foot, and this actually does play differently than when you're on wheels. When you're on foot, for one, the controls change a little bit and get even more precise and tighter, which makes sense because you don't have the momentum of being on a set of wheels anymore. But also, you can do two things on foot that you can't do when you're riding around. First of all, you can do a trick on the ground and then jump immediately after to get a high jump, which is used to access certain areas, which is cool. And then also there are these paths on the ground that you can slide on, which is the equivalent of doing a manual when you're on foot, and these paths will allow you to keep your slide going indefinitely. There's also some small little nooks you can occasionally find that you can slide under, which, you know, that's not really very much of anything. It's just you see it and you slide under it. But a lot of these they manage to hide pretty well, so you gotta keep your eyes peeled for locations where you can slide under stuff to find extra goodies, so I think that works pretty well. And this is all great stuff. Like, I wish we could have similar differences across all the different types of wheels you can ride on, rather than them all just playing exactly the same as each other. But to be fair, I think it would be pretty hard to come up with all these different things that all these different types of vehicles could use. So it's understandable. Not the biggest deal in the world, but a little disappointing. Of course, there's also graffiti that we have to talk about, and I love how the graffiti system in this game works. I really liked the tactile feel of doing the motions in the first Jet Set Radio game when you get to bigger graffiti pieces, and I was sad that they took that out in Jet Set Radio Future. But here in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, they kind of have a system similar to the first Jet Set Radio game, where you do a bunch of different movements with the analog stick in order to draw your graffiti, but what's cool is that it's not a preset QTE sequence that you have to do. You actually have many different patterns that you manually get to choose which motions you're gonna do, and every set of motions will create a different graffiti piece. And this works so well for so many different reasons. First of all, it brings back that tactile feeling of you actually drawing the graffiti as you move the analog stick around in all these different directions. But also, it gives you great motivation to go out of your way to try to collect as many different graffiti designs as possible, because that gives you more options in what you can draw. And that works so much better than the Jet Set Radio games. In those games, you could only equip a small handful of different graffiti designs, and then they would just get automatically applied. Here, you have every single different piece of graffiti art available all at once, and you get to pick at a moment's notice what you're gonna draw, where, and when. And you also get more points and more boost meter when you draw graffiti designs that you have not previously drawn in the current level or mission, which motivates you to try to vary things up as much as possible. So you want to kind of keep in mind what graffiti designs you have drawn and which ones you haven't drawn as you play through, and trying to remember which motion leads to what designs so that way you can adequately vary things up. There's also a really satisfying sense of mastery that comes from getting more familiar with the different motions that you have available to you, because at the beginning of the game, you're going to be a little bit slow as you try to figure out, okay, I move it in this direction, and now what options are available to me? And then you move it in that direction. You constantly have to pause and see what you can do. But as you get further in the game and you get more familiar, then you can quickly, without even looking, just choo-choo-choo-choo and draw something really fast, and that just makes you feel so fucking cool. Doing graffiti in this game is great. It is really, really fun. The only thing about it is that, unfortunately, cops are not able to interrupt you when you're doing graffiti in this game like they could in the first Jet Set Radio, which makes sense for this game's design. But that was one aspect of Jet Set Radio that I quite liked, is, you know, you're trying to do your graffiti and then, oh shit, it's the cops, we gotta bail and get out of here. I thought that was a really fun interaction, and that is not here in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. And in fact, let's go on to talking about the enemies, because I'm of two minds about how the enemies work in this game. On one hand, they are pretty negligible for the most part, unfortunately. You know, similar to Jet Set Radio, as you spray more as you play throughout the level, more cops are going to spawn, and they're going to get more aggressive with bigger, more dangerous enemy types and stuff. But really, because of how crazy fluid the movement in this game is, the enemies aren't really much of threats at all. For the most part, you can completely ignore them, which is not good, obviously. But then, at the same time, when they do occasionally get in your way, I think it's in a really fun way. Particularly, I really like these turrets that shoot out these, like, homing chains that lock onto you. And when you're chained up, it actually affects your movement. You get, like, pulled toward the turret, and you have to break the chains by doing tricks. And these are really fun. One, because it means you gotta be very agile in order to avoid the chains, and if one does start to get really annoying, then you can go over and destroy it, and that works quite well. But unfortunately, you can't say the same for pretty much any of the other enemy types. For the most part, they don't really get in your way very often, and when they do, you kind of just go around them and go back to ignoring them, which is not great. And then another thing when it comes to the enemies is that combat has been implemented in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, and at first the combat feels quite bad. The way it works is you just do tricks on enemies and that deals damage to them, and it's very, like, unresponsive and unsatisfying to hit the enemies, and it just doesn't feel very good, and it feels very clunky, and when you get to the bigger enemies, you have to, like, wait for them to open themselves up or whatever. And yeah, a lot of it just doesn't really work super well at first, but eventually, once you start to figure out the combat a little bit more, it does actually start to become quite fun. What you eventually realize is that all the enemy types, there's a way to, like, open them up, and then you can do a graffiti tag on them as, like, a finishing move, And the core of the combat really starts to become trying to do those as much as possible, as quickly as possible to all of the enemies. So when it comes to the basic enemies, if you do a trick and then jump to get the high jump, then you'll launch them into the air, and then you can finish them off. So the combat turns into trying to bunch these enemies up as much as possible so you can send many of them up into the air to finish them off all at once, and that's pretty cool. And when it comes to the bigger enemies, it becomes about boosting into them in order to do like some big move that opens up their weak spots so that way you can tag it. And what's cool about this is you can use this to circumvent kind of the more annoying and unfun aspects that are present in the combat. For example, you have like these big tank enemies, and you have to wait for them to do their attack animation, and then they go into like a cooldown phase where you can grind up their arms and then you can tag them. Or instead, you can just get to a high vantage point and jump and boost at the enemy, and you can eventually just get on its arm and immediately destroy it. And if you really get lucky and you know what you're doing, you can even like go from one arm right onto the other and immediately take both of them out. And then you can go from a high vantage point and then jump onto the barrel immediately and destroy the enemy. And this big boss-like enemy that's normally supposed to take like a couple of minutes to fight, you can be done with them in like 20 seconds if you know what you're doing. And it's quite fun. It actually manages to feel really good once you get the hang of things. So combat in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, I actually think it's not bad. And one thing that's really nice about this combat is that it can seamlessly flow in and out of your traversal and even your combo chains. It's possible to maintain your combo while fighting enemies. So you can be like skating around and then some enemies get in your way and you quickly dispatch them without even dropping your combo, and then you just go right back to what you were doing. It's pretty fucking sick, honestly. Though, overall, I would not say that Bomb Rush Cyberfunk has amazing combat. You know, this isn't some action game or anything like that. But I would say that the combat is effective enough to be decently fun, so I'll take it. I think it works well for what the game is, and it's not too intrusive, and I actually think it adds to the game in a good way, so thumbs up for me. And that pretty much does it for the gameplay and mechanics of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, and it is excellent for sure. By far the most fun thing about this game is just flowing through these levels, keeping your combo going, spraying things. It just feels incredibly fun to do anything in this game. But what about the game itself? We gotta talk about that. So let's start on level design, and I think the level design of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is really, really good. An interesting thing about Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is that it kind of mixes and matches certain elements from the original Jet Set Radio as well as Future, and it kind of takes the best bits of both and puts them together to make something better than either of them. So, for example, the whole world here is continuous, like Jet Set Radio Future. Every level connects to all the other levels, so you can seamlessly go from one to the other. Though that's not an issue in this game like it is in Future, because the levels are much more intuitively designed, and it's much easier to go from place to place, and there's also a fast travel system, so that's all good. But then when you actually get into the levels themselves, they're kind of laid out a little bit more like the original Jet Set Radio. In that game, the levels were kind of split up into multiple different sections, and we have a similar thing going on here in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, where you'll have very distinct separate areas, and as you complete whatever task you have to do in one area, it will unlock the next area, and you can move on to that. And as for the level layouts themselves, I think they are pretty fantastic. Very good kind of like jungle gym playground-esque level design here, where you have multiple different lines, multiple different paths you can take, many ways to mix and match how you go from one line to another, and it complements the combo system very nicely here. And one thing I'm very glad to see that this game did not take from Jet Set Radio Future is its really annoying linear level design, where that game had a lot of levels that were really a pain in the ass to go through, where they were like one long linear path that you had to progress forward down doing these platforming challenges, oftentimes with very vertical level design, where if you mess up, you fall down, and then you have to take 5 minutes getting back up to where you were. And it was just really annoying, and thankfully that is not much of an issue here in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. There are some more linear parts of stages where you do have to do some platforming and even some vertical stuff, but these are designed much better than the ones in Jet Set Radio Future, because the entire level is not built this way. It'll kind of be like the transitions to different sections will be designed like this, where you'll have you know, a little playground area for you to traverse around and look for those tags, and then you will have a linear platforming sequence that will take you to the next area where there's another playground for you to explore around. So these linear sequences are shorter, and they have also more frequent checkpointing and ways for you to get back up. And there are also some more dedicated, longer linear platforming sequences, but these are oftentimes set in their own distinct areas, separate from everything else, and that's the only thing you're going to be doing. And normally these just have bottomless pits below, so if you end up falling, you just respawn right back where you were and you get to start over, so not really an issue at all. Plus, with the fantastic controls in this game, falling is not really something you have to worry about too much, and it's really fun to go through these platforming sequences, so I really have no issue with this. They totally fixed that problem from Jet Set Radio Future, so that's great. I also want to talk a bit about the structure of BRC, and this is one area where the game is fairly different from the Jet Set Radio games. In those games, you would go into a level, and then you would just clear out all the graffiti tags, and that would be that. And then maybe after doing that, you would have some kind of encounter with a boss, or some sort of mission with another character, or something like that. But in BRC, things are a little bit different. Now, those kinds of mission objectives are really the main thing you're trying to do in these levels. But in order to unlock these missions, you need to build up your rep, and you build rep by spraying graffiti all over the place. So graffiti itself is no longer necessarily the objective, it's just a way to get access to your real objective, which is doing these missions. And one big difference that comes in that is you don't have to get all of the graffiti tags in an area in order to complete it, you just need to get enough rep to unlock the next mission. Which, in a way, I think is a very good thing, because sometimes in the Jet Set Radio games, especially Future, having to hunt for absolutely every single graffiti tag, that could sometimes get quite annoying, but here in BRC, that's really not a concern. You don't have to be constantly checking the map to see where the spray locations are. In fact, you can't even see them on the map your first time through an area, so really you just skate around and you get whatever tags you see until you unlock the missions. Once you have all the rep you need, you can just do the missions and then complete the area, but if you want, you can also just keep exploring around and keep getting the rest of the graffiti tags just for the sake of it, which obviously I opted to do because it's super fun. But when it comes to these missions themselves, this is where we actually get to a little bit of the weakness of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, in my opinion, because these missions are not the best things in the world. For example, one type of mission that you have is something returning from the Jet Set Radio games, where you watch another character do a little sequence, and then you have to copy that sequence. And at the beginning of the game, these are mostly done for tutorialization, which I think works quite well, but these still stick around to the point that you're at the end of the game and you still have to do these, and at this point the game's not teaching you anything more, these are just challenges, but there's absolutely nothing challenging about doing these, so I think that those could just go away toward the end of the game. Or alternatively, you could make these sequences actually challenging to do, but they're not, so that's not great. Another type of mission from the Jet Set Radio games is, of course, races, and thankfully the races in this game, they actually show you where you're racing to and what path you have to take to get there, so that's very nice. But when it comes to the races themselves, they're not particularly great because it's really not difficult at all to move as fast as possible in this game, so there's nothing that AI can really do to pose much of a challenge to you, because if they went genuinely really fast, then there'd be nothing you could do to pass them. Because it's so easy to go so fast, they just have to be relatively slow, so you really don't have to worry about them very much. Especially this is a problem when you start a race and you already have a full boost meter going into it, so you could just blast right through it and leave the AIs in the dust. What I think would have been better for these races is if you had it where you empty the player's meter at the start of the race and let the AI get a little bit of a head start, like give them some boost meter and they can rocket forward, and now you need to do tricks in order to build boost meter to catch up and surpass them by the end of the race. That might have been pretty cool, but the way they're currently implemented into the game, they're pretty nothing, which is unfortunate. Speaking of missions that are nothing, there's also the score and trick missions, and these ones are just really stupid because naturally just playing the game, exploring around, you're gonna be doing tricks, you're gonna be doing combos, you're gonna be doing a bunch of crazy shit. So what ends up happening is you'll be on a tear on like a 180 trick combo that's gonna be worth like 700,000 points, and you have to intentionally drop your combo so you can talk to this NPC who then goes, do a 50,000 point combo. And I'm like, bro, are you fucking kidding me? For real? Can I just automatically complete this challenge because I had previously completed it before I talked to you? It just seems very stupid to me. It's not really much of a problem because these missions are very, very quick to get done, but it seems like these would be better if they were just kind of passive objectives that you could complete at any time while exploring the levels, rather than being like dedicated missions that you have to initiate, but not that big of a problem. The only time these scoring missions ever really work to me is when you get to the post-game missions, because here you get scoring challenges that require a lot. You'll need to get millions of points before the time is over, and these actually work quite well, and these function well with a combo system, because as I said before, it's very easy to basically just keep your combo going forever, and these really high score challenges actually ask you to take advantage of that, because with the amount of time that you have to get these scores, you basically have to do the entire challenge in like 1 or 2 combos. So it's asking you, like, yeah, it's not that hard to keep a combo going, but can you keep a combo going for several minutes at a time? And another thing about the combo system that I didn't mention before that I quite like is how the score multiplier works. You know, in the Tony Hawk games, every time you add a trick to the combo, it increases the multiplier. And a flaw with that system is that it becomes very easy to just get your score to ridiculous levels without having to do very much. Like, if you watch high score runs in Tony Hawk games, a lot of them can be just, like, jumping in place and doing tricks while manualing repeatedly, and that's all you need to do to get a ridiculously high score. But here in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, it doesn't work that way. Tricks don't add to your multiplier, they just give you more points. To increase your multiplier, you have to interact with specific level elements, and what's cool is that you can only interact with something once during a mission, and after that, if you repeatedly interact with it, it no longer adds to your combo. And the things you have to do are, like, when you're grinding on rails, anytime there's big sharp turns in the rail, while there's no balancing in this game, you can lean into the turn, and if you do that, then you'll get a burst of speed, and it will add to your multiplier. You can also do wall runs or go off of vert ramps, and all of those will add to your multiplier as well. And so getting a big score in Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is not just about having a really long combo with you doing lots and lots of tricks. It also requires you to go around basically the entire level. In order to get your multiplier as high as possible, you have to interact with all these different things all over the place. And so when you're doing these, like, really big score challenges, a cool thing that you end up doing is you basically use the entire level in your combo, where you try to get as many multiplier increases in one area as you can, and then you run out of stuff to go off of, so you have to leave and go to a different section of the level, keeping your combo going the entire time. And another good thing to keep in mind is that spraying graffiti is the thing that gives you the most points, and so in addition to just traveling around and doing tricks, you also want to be doing those graffiti tags, and as I said before, you get more points for doing tags that you haven't previously done in this challenge. So not only are you trying to vary up where you're tricking and what you're doing, but also when you're spraying, you're trying to vary that up as much as possible. So all this comes together in a system that works very well to get you to basically play the game in, like, the coolest way you possibly can, which is why it works so well in just normal gameplay outside of these scoring challenges, because this is basically what you want to be doing anyway at all times. In fact, this is so much fun that I'm a bit disappointed that the game doesn't have any kind of, like, arcade mode you can do once you beat the game or whatever, where you can, like, go into a level and you have to do all of the graffiti tags in the whole level, or maybe just in a section of the level, within a certain time limit, and then you can get ranked based on your score, and so it could encourage you to try to get good enough to do the entire level in one combo or something like that. That would be really cool. I hope they add something like that in an update or whatever. But outside of those really big scoring missions, the missions here are pretty underwhelming in my opinion, kind of adopting some of the weakness from the Jet Set Radio games and not really improving on them as much as other elements that Bomb Rush Cyberfunk has done. Which is unfortunate, but it's not the biggest problem in the world. These missions are very quick and they're not really intrusive at all. You can just immediately get back to what you were doing. And a nice thing is that while you're doing these missions, you can still be spraying stuff around, so a lot of times while I'm doing these missions, I'm still doing the normal gameplay at the same time, so that's kind of fun, trying to multitask stuff around. I like it. Another thing I noticed about Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is that this game is very, very rigidly structured, perhaps a bit overly so, in fact, because There are 5 main areas in the game, and all of these 5 areas function pretty much identically with what you end up doing and how you go about doing it. When you first enter the area, you're going to have to build rep to unlock missions, so you go around and spray everything. And then you unlock those missions and you complete them, and then a new area will be opened up to you. And an interesting thing about this early part of the level, when you're exploring around to get spray tags and doing these missions, there are no police during this entire phase of the level. They just do not show up. And it's after you complete all of this initial set of missions that you then have some forced combat encounter, usually where they're going to introduce a new enemy type. And now from this point on in the level, cops are going to start showing up as you spray around, which is kind of interesting. It's like a way to mix the different ways that Jet Set Radio and Future handle the cops. In Future, you would explore around and there were just no cops anywhere, and then you would get into forced combat encounters, but in the first Jet Set Radio, as you were spraying around, more and more cops would show up and you'd have to worry about them. So this is kind of a way to do both of them. In the first part of the level, you don't have to worry about cops. Then there's an encounter, now they're going to start showing up. And I guess it works decently well. It's a way to increase the difficulty of the level as you keep going. So yeah, sure, I'm fine with that. And once you get to this later part of the level, then to unlock the final mission of the area, you once again have to build up your reps, so you're going to have to go around spraying graffiti. But what I found very disappointing is that the final mission in every area is the exact same thing. It's just a scoring challenge where you have 2 minutes and you have to get a higher score than the enemy team, so it's kind of like doing a Tony Hawk thing. And I get it, but because the scoring system in this game is so weak unless you're going for ridiculously high scores, all of these are just kind of skate around for 2 minutes and then you win, is what they ended up feeling like to me. And a lot of times it felt very anticlimactic to me, where, you know, you're encroaching on this enemy gang's turf and you're messing with them and they're all like, oh, we're gonna get you. And then it ultimately just ends in a little trick competition and then it's over. Like, I feel like a better way that they could have gone about this was that every one of the different gangs, when you were going against them, you had a different challenge that you had to complete in order to take control of the area. Like the first one, make it a scoring competition, sure, because it's early in the game and the players are still going to be getting a grasp of the scoring system. But then, like, for example, one that really stuck out to me is that when you get to the third gang, there are these cybernetic b-boy guys, and they talk about how they've enhanced their bodies to be the ultimate dancers and stuff. And in my head, I was like, ooh, that could be really fun. For the final challenge, we could have, like, a breakdancing competition. It could be like a little rhythm game thing. I mean, who the fuck would not want a rhythm game out of this game's fucking awesome music? And that would have been a really good finale, where you take out the cybernetically enhanced breakdancers in a dancing competition. But no, it's just another scoring challenge, just like all the other ones, and it's like, that's a little bit lame. Also, another big disappointment, there's no Tagger's Tag in this, which is so weird. Like, they have the ability to have AIs going around skating and even spraying stuff, so I don't know why that wouldn't be a thing in this game. That was one of the best things in the Jet Set Radio games. Very strange to omit that. I feel like that would have worked much better as a final challenge for all these areas. I understand that they wanted to take advantage of the scoring system that they implemented here, but on its own, it's not really that strong without, you know, objectives that you're doing at the same time and stuff like that. So, the finale missions here are a little disappointing, but again, not really that much of an issue. And then once you complete this final challenge and you finish the area, then you always go into this kind of psychedelic, dreamlike level, and these are big linear platforming challenges that all you have to do is get to the end of, and these are quite fun, actually. The level design here is pretty good. This is something I noticed a lot in the level design of the game overall. It really does take advantage of the fact that this is a 3D platformer in ways a lot of games don't really do very often. Like, you have sequences like this, where you have to jump around something a full corner, and it's like, I have played so few 3D platformers that ask you to do things like that, and this game actually is bold enough to do those kinds of things. And the camera here is really, really good, so there's no issues whatsoever with any of the platforming sequences. You can always see what you need to do. There's no issues like what was present in Jet Set Radio Future. Everything works super well here, and it's really fun. In particular, I like to try to do these levels all in one combo, and I have actually managed to do that with a couple of them, which is very, very satisfying. And that's pretty much Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had with a video game in quite a while, where not only is this a really fun game to play, but it's the complete package. It's got a good story, great style and aesthetic, great music, great gameplay, great level design, great everything. You know, there's a couple of small issues here with, like, the missions and stuff, but those are very, very minor flaws that barely do anything to take away from the game. 99% of this game is absolutely fantastic, and I loved pretty much every minute I had playing this game. I guess one other thing I could criticize Bomb Rush Cyberfunk for is because the controls are so precise and so smooth and everything works so well, this game ends up being very, very easy. There's nothing in this game that I found was even remotely challenging. Anytime you come across some big platforming sequence, I always immediately knew what to do and I was able to do it without any issue whatsoever. So at 0 points in this game did I ever feel like I was being pushed, and normally that would bother me with a game like this because I do enjoy challenging games and I want to see a game's design and mechanics pushed to their absolute limit. But in the case of Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, I really didn't have an issue with this because the game overall, it kind of transcends that sort of mechanical enjoyment I get from engaging with a game system. As much as I did love that here as well, the thing I enjoyed most about Bomb Rush Cyberfunk more than anything was just being in it, being in that moment. This is not a game that I'm, you know, at the edge of my seat really pushing myself to. This is a very laid-back, chill game where you just get to take in the awesome atmosphere and the vibes, and you get to fuck around with a really great-feeling movement system and these really well-designed levels. That is really what it's all about with Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. And really, that was true with the Jet Set Radio games as well. Gameplay-wise, they're not the best games in the world, but putting it all together creates an experience that is more than just a fun video game to play. It's a great experience to have. The difference with Bomb Rush Cyberfunk is that this game is very fun to play as well, which just makes the experience all that much better. So if you couldn't have guessed, I wholeheartedly recommend Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. I think this game is spectacular, and I want every single person watching this video to go buy and play it immediately, because this game deserves as much success as is physically possible. You know, for a long time, many people, myself included, have been asking Sega for Jet Set Radio 3. Well, I can now say that I am no longer waiting for Jet Set Radio 3. I am now waiting for Bomb Rush Cyberfunk 2. Thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. If you did and you'd like to support the channel, don't instead go buy Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. I'll see you next time.